been giving a lot of attention to fiction books, and I really want to talk about the non-fiction ones I read in the past and if they really did help me or not. The books I'm going to talk to you about are mainly self-help books or health/wellness books, which are supposed to help you grow as a person. Well, let me just put it out there, most of them are not going to do that for you. Sometimes it is because the time just isn't right for you to read that particular book, but many other times the book is just not good enough. First, I'm going to start with 3 books which are somehow on the same topic. They are written by Hector Garcia, who moved to Tokyo in 2004, I think. He writes about Japanese philosophy and culture and talks about strategies that we can apply to live a longer and more fulfilled life. These are definitely easy books, which are still enjoyable. So if you want to have a holistic and simple view of the Japanese life philosophy, you can go ahead and try this collection of books. Each of them focuses on a specific topic within the realm of Japanese philosophy. The first book is Ikigai, and it means the reason to live. And with this one, Hector Garcia talks about how Japanese people eat, how they work, and how they do everything in their life according to their reason to live. Then we have Ichigo Ichiya, which was my favorite one. It means one life, one encounter. It's about living in the moment and enjoying every single second of it because it never happens again. The last one is Shinrin Yoku, which is about forest bathing. So mainly the benefits that come with staying in nature and taking a walk in the forest and so on. This was my least favorite one, and I felt like it was a bit boring. These books are not very interesting, they're just easy reads, as I just told you. The next book is Atomic Habits, which I have in real form. It definitely is a good book since it is a bestseller and everyone appreciates the information James Clear gives us through the book. But for me, at the time when I read it, I didn't feel like it made a difference for me. It is about improving 1% every day and the strategies you can apply to be able to grow as a person through habits that are just engraved in your day-to-day life. Even though it is a good book, for me, it didn't really click at the moment when I read it. I didn't feel like it made such a difference. Yes, I enjoyed reading it. I felt like it kept me interested in what he's saying, and I liked the chapter summaries and the pictures or graphs and so on. And I think it is a very good book which can help you do the things you want to do in life. But I think that for me it didn't work. But I tend to believe that that was my fault because maybe the time wasn't right for me. In time, I got to implement a few things I read in the book, but I'm not really sure if it has anything to do with me reading it. But anyway, it is a good book that is worth reading and might change some people's lives, but it didn't change mine. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson, which I read and then completely forgot everything about it, which is not a good sign. I did like a few parts, like when he talks about how fear guides you and when he presents a situation in which he faces death somehow and how life-altering that is. And I liked those parts, but the rest of it just didn't do anything for me. I didn't like his tone or his style. It was very annoying. So no, I just won't recommend it. Good Morning Monster by Catherine Gildner or something. In this book, we have a therapist who talks about 5 of her patients which had really traumatic lives and how they eventually somehow got over their trauma or learned how to live with it. It is worth reading if you are interested in this type of books. It was very interesting, and I wanted to learn more about the characters or the real person's lives. But I don't think it taught me anything apart from making me understand that other people go through really terrible stuff, and maybe I'm not the most important one in some cases, and that others have it way worse than me. Maybe that's a thing that I got to think while reading this book. Let's say it helped me realize that sometimes you need a break from being self-centered. Apart from the learning part, the book was enjoyable and I was invested and outraged by their lives and I wanted to know more. So if you like this type of book, you can go ahead and try it out. Maybe you should talk to someone by Mary Gottlieb or something. I started reading this book because I searched for something similar to the one I previously told you about. And I found this one, which was not really that similar. It was different because we are still reading about patients, but the therapist is also a patient. So we are seeing the therapist as her role as a doctor, but at the same time as a patient. So it is quite interesting. It has interesting stories, but it's not life-altering by any means. Anyway, I enjoyed reading it. Not one of my favorites, but a good book. The Mountain is You by Brianna West, which I found on Book Talk and was quite disappointed by. I didn't like it all that much and got very bored with it. It is about self-sabotage and strategies that you can implement to address self-damaging behaviors. When I read it, I felt like maybe 20% of it had very interesting information and helpful strategies that you can use to help yourself out. But apart from that 20%, I didn't like it at all and I felt like it was very, very boring. But for that 20%, I would recommend it to anyone who struggles with self-sabotaging behaviors. Gambat, the Japanese of always moving forward or something like that. It is a very simple and very boring book. It is so simple that you just don't want to read it. Also, it just didn't keep me interested in anything the author had to say. It teaches you the Japanese philosophy of Gambat, which means not giving up and trying your best. And it teaches you the Japanese philosophy of Ganbate, which means keep going or try your best through story-like chapters on different anecdotes or Japanese sayings, if I remember correctly. Anyway, I didn't like it at all. It was very boring and I just don't think it was worth it at all. The next 3 books are about eating and healthy eating, which I chose because I was somehow struggling with overeating or just poor eating habits and wanted to read something that would help me out a little bit. If you want to read them for understanding a philosophy and acquiring some habits through reading this book, it just won't happen. But if you want to read books on food and healthy food and so on, just for the information it gives you on how healthy bananas are, then yeah, these books are totally worth it. But I'm gonna go through each of them and tell you my opinions more in depth. The Longevity Diet by Walter Longo, which has good information about healthy eating and what healthy foods you should eat to live longer. But what I didn't like was that at the end you had more than a dozen pages with meal plans, like step-by-step diets, what you should eat in the morning, at noon, and so on. I don't really like that because it feels like a dietitian who gives me a step-by-step plan to eat that way. It's a diet, it's not a lifestyle, and I don't think it really helps. But for the information, yes, it was a helpful book. The Art of Eating Less by Dominique Laroux, which I can't find a picture of, only in French. I read it and I wasn't very impressed by it. I did end up eating less with time, but it was not because of this book. Maybe it would help some of you out. I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it, though. Try Not to Die by Michael Greger. And with this one, I have some conflicting opinions. On one hand, I felt like it was a very, very interesting book that shows you some stuff you don't really know about and makes you understand how powerful food is, and the veggies and the fruits, how important they are and how much they help you live longer if you consume them regularly. But on the other hand, I felt like it was one-sided, and even though the author says, I'm not advocating for being vegan or vegetarian, I feel like he kind of does, and I don't know, I feel like you should have a balance of everything, but nonetheless, the book was interesting, and you should probably read it if you are interested in what food is good for you and how can you live longer through food. Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Which, interesting topic, yes. Poor writing, though. It was one of the most boring books, scientific or knowledgeable books I have ever read. I am still interested in the topic, but I just couldn't push myself to read it. It was interesting and it kept me reading for maybe, I don't know, a quarter of the book, but the rest I just couldn't get myself to read. Maybe if it was half the pages it is, I would be able to enjoy it, but as it is right now, I will never read it. The next books I DNF'd, but I really want to talk about anyway. Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, which I think I DNF'd because of my stupidity. I don't know. This was one of the first books I tried to read, and since English is not my first language, it was kind of hard to keep focusing on the book. So yeah, it was mainly my fault. It was interesting and up until he talked about how politics started to appear. I think I can't really remember. It was a really long time ago. But this is something that shows me the fact that when you read the book is very important, and if you didn't like a book at some point, maybe later on when you are a bit older or maybe you are in a different situation, you will very much enjoy the book. And I really want to go back to trying Sapiens out. It is definitely a fascinating book, and I am quite sorry I couldn't read it, but I will in the future. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosen something. At the time, I really thought that my anger issues are going to be solved by this book. It might come as a surprise, but the book didn't help at all. The book is a bit weird in the sense that he talks to us about a course or a speech he held for employees from some company or other situation in which he teaches someone what in turn we learn from the book, if that makes any sense. And it is mainly about how you can evade the question of someone who is a bit aggressive towards you and how you should manage that person through being a bit smarter in how you talk and not being defensive or offensive. So just answering in a more controlled way, and the other person will just let their guard down, and eventually you're going to get to a normal, efficient conversation or discussion or whatever. I don't know if whatever I said makes any sense, but I didn't like the book. Maybe it is interesting for some people. It wasn't for me. In this video, I used the word interesting, I think, 30 times. Osho on chakras, and please don't ask me why I chose this book, why I bought it, why I thought I would be interested. I gave it a try. I think I read 40 pages, something like this. I did agree with a few things that are written here, but overall it it's just not for me, and yeah, I don't know why I bought it. Nothing else to say. I don't know what's with this book. When I started reading, I went for self-help books or non-fiction generally because I thought that it's easier to read this type of books and that they are somehow more efficient and they will help you grow more rapidly. But as time passed by and I read different types of books and different genres, I realized that you can learn as much or even more from a fiction book if you take the time to really understand the characters, their relationships, their behaviors, and just really wonder. You know, let your mind wander and try to understand more. And that's how I think you can learn a lot from any type of book. Books on science and history are such great sources of information, and I think you should definitely read books from this genre, and I plan on doing so. Also, wellness and health books present significant information, but I would much rather prefer to learn these things from documentaries or videos or from a Google search. I just feel like that works better and I will get the information quicker. That was my opinion on the books I've read. I plan on reading more books, but not so much self-help books, but books on science and history and other genres as well. I don't really know. But yeah, thanks for watching, and if you want to watch more content on books and even more, subscribe to my channel and also like this video if you will. Thanks, and hope you have a wonderful day.